it's Liz Yuille from Old Staples Crafts. Welcome back to my YouTube channel, and again, apologies for the lighting. I am doing a bit of filming back to back, and it's 5:30 in the evening, so of course the lighting is appalling. So this is today's project, and it's for the Inspire Create Challenge group. So, just remembered what I'd forgotten. So today's challenge is a colour challenge, which is Tranquil Tide, Pear Pizzazz, Crumb Cake and Real Red. Now, I really was a bit flummoxed by this one. However, I'm quite pleased with what we've ended up with because it ticks a couple of boxes for me. I haven't done an eclipse card yet, so it ticks the box for that because this is snow. And it's hit the brief, which is always a good start. So let's have a go at recreating this. So first things first, I'm going to need something to stamp off onto. Oh, I do apologise, that's everything knocked. Let's see if I can get that back to... Oh, that was fun, wasn't it? Nearly ended up with ink pads on the floor. This is what comes of filming in a tripod, because I've got legs, a leg there, a leg there, and a leg there. However, so I was trying to work around one of the legs. Right, basic stuff is, we need letters, we'll come back to those. So I'm using Very Vanilla, and then I'm using, so this is a Very Vanilla card base. This is A4 cut in half to A5, scored down the middle to make an A6 standard card base. A piece of, that's the thick Very Vanilla, then a piece of the ordinary Very Vanilla for stamping, and that is my usual 5.5 by 3 3/4, and this is my usual matte, which is 5 5/8 by 3 7/8. Measurements on the associated blog post immediately below here, so don't worry about writing anything down. I am using the Season Like Christmas stamp set. This is on the retirement sale, so if you would like it, now is your moment. And I'm not quite sure when this will go. Oh no, I do know when this will go out. This will go out before the final shipping day. So remember, the 14th of December is the final shipping day for Christmas, so if you want it in time for Christmas, you know what to do. Right, so Tranquil Tide, Pear Pizzazz, Crumb Cake and Real Red. I have to say my cheat on the Real Red is a piece of Real Red ribbon. This is carrying over. I am thrilled because it's lovely ribbon. So let's get started. I am going to start with what I call the least tree and Tranquil Tide. The reason I'm doing this is because it's the darkest colour, and therefore it's going to be easier to line up against it than to line up it against Pear Pizzazz. Now, I'm now going to do everything sideways because I just find it easier when I'm doing, well, I just find it easier. Doesn't matter really why. I just do, because I'm mad like that. So let's pop that there and ink this up with Tranquil Tide, and then right at the bottom, and this is where not having a camera in the way would be lovely, just stamp that down, and then immediately before you re-ink it, move it up so that it comes up to the top, and do a second one, and then do the same again. And I'm overlapping a bit so that it looks like the second generation is behind, and it becomes more apparent as you build up the layers. Just make sure that's properly inked. And again. Now, if at any point your first generation stamp goes off the card, re-ink, stamp off and come back. Otherwise you could end up with a line, and let me show you what I mean by that. Let's find a scrap, a real scrap. So here's a scrap of card. So if I stamp that down, so I've got my first generation there, and then stamp again, I've got a line, and that's because the first bit was fine, the top was fine, but the bit either side didn't stamp off, so it was still full generation. So if you get that, if you ever get that happening, remember to start again. Did any of that make sense? I'm not sure it did. Right, so that's the Tranquil Tide ink done. So let's bring in Pear Pizzazz and our more solid tree stamp. And again, I'm just going to ink that up. And there are some gaps in the stamp. It's probably easier to see it this way up. There's some gaps in the stamp. That is what you're trying to line up, because there's gaps here. So line up the gaps here with the gaps in the stamp that you've already stamped, or the impression you've already stamped. It's not a precise line up. It doesn't matter if you're out a wee bit. And then again, second generation, ink up again, line up, and second generation, and you can see it's all beginning to come together. It becomes a little more obvious once you put the trunks in. Line up, and second generation. And that's all our trees stamped. Pop those over to one side to get cleaned in a moment. And then finally our crumb cake and the tree stalk trunk. So it's this. And we're lining up these gaps with these gaps. And again, it's not a precise art. It's just so that they're sort of there. But don't worry too much if they don't line up beautifully. Now these I am going to re-ink in between. I did try doing it second generation and it just wasn't quite dark enough. So go for first generation and it'll be fine. So if you were watching my video of the teeny tiny little box yesterday, you will realise that we've had lots of snow, which was probably my inspiration for this card. Right, so that is the stamping done. No, it's not. One more thing to do. Ha, forgot. My trees are floating in the air. I don't like trees that float in the air. So I've got this piece here, which is the shadow, and I'm just going to add that in underneath the trees that are in the background. And again, I'm just doing it first generation so that there's just something for them to sit on. I don't like things just floating unless it's a fairy or an angel or a bird in flight. But something that's meant to be grounded, I quite like grounded. So that's that. I'm going to bring in my heat gun just to dry that off, because the next thing I want to do is stamp with embossing powder. Or stamp with Versamark so I can emboss. So apologies for the noise. I just want to make sure it's absolutely dry. I'm just using the first heat setting just to make sure. It should be dry, but I just want to make absolutely sure. So this is a waft. And that's all I need to do on that. And then bring in my Versamark and this, which can be baubles. So you could do this in Versamark and then gold or silver embossing powder. I'm going to use white so that it's snow. So ink that up well. And I'm only doing it on the trees in the foreground. Again, I tried it on all of them. Oh, embossing buddy, particularly as I've been stamping. Let's just make sure that we've got... It doesn't matter too much if I get embossing powder where it shouldn't be, because we are, after all, talking about snow, but I don't want too much. So having said that, I always do that sort of stamping on the side. This bit I'm going to do straight on because I'm contrary. And again, it's not vital where it goes, it's just a rough approximation, particularly as this is for snow and not for baubles. So it is less of an issue. It would never have been an issue, and it's even less of one now. Right, Versamark cover on, and that off and to the side. White embossing powder. Just get that all shooken down. And let it snow, as they say. Now, you don't want to hang around too long before you put your embossing powder on, but the Versamark does take a wee while to dry, so you don't have to be, you know, in a mad dash. And again, remember that what we're doing is giving a suggestion, so precision is not vital. It's good, but not vital. Right, trusty cheese board. Just clip that on and bring in, I should take out my pad. I was using my pad because it's photopolymer and a fairly solid image. Although, as you know, this is spongy, my background is spongy. For those trees, particularly as I was doing second generation, I like to make sure it's well and truly sponged. So, this is where I do not waft. For embossing powder, I hold and wait until it's melting and then move. We can sort out any buckling later on. Apologies for the noise. So it would be lovely if lots of you would take part in this challenge. You don't have to do Christmas of any sort. I mean, this isn't really Christmas, this is winter. So it can be any theme, it's just the colours. So, yeah. The more the merrier. And I think, I'm just having a look from the side just to see if there's any that hasn't melted, possibly just down here. And there. That's better. You can just, I can just see where the light's hitting, where is and isn't melted, which is why I was looking from the side. Right, so that's that done. So what we need now is our magnetic base plate on our big shot and the letters to spell snow. So these are the large letter dies. The one to get right is the S, because it does have an upside and a downside. So what I do is I put down the two extreme ends, try and get those so that they're even top and bottom. I have been known to get the ruler out. I will try not to this time. Try and control the nerd in me. Oops. And then just spread the letters out so that they are reasonably even and reasonably straight, which for the purposes of the video we will say we are. My horrible cutting plate, which works beautifully, and through the big shot. take this off, and I don't mind at this stage if everything is still attached. Just check that it's all cut, which it is. Pop that back on the Big Shot. And right, I need that middle to stay in the O for the moment, but the other letters can come out, and it will become apparent why I need that middle in the O very shortly. Right, so there is our basic background. Tranquil Tide background. It's good for these sort of cards to have a darkish background. Now, because I've got some interesting points, I'm going to use Tombow to stick this down. One that's not completely gummed up would be useful. It's better. Hopefully this will work. If not, I have another one standing by. So, there we go. So, round the edge as ever. Oops, off the edge of your card. And just make sure that you're putting adhesive, can you see? Yes, you can. Putting adhesive on anything that could get caught. You don't need a lot, but you do need some. Perfect. Right. Okay. Moment of truth. So line that up there, press it down, and I'm going to turn it over and give it a good press. And there we go. Right, now I said it was important to leave the middle of the O in situ, because then you can find where the O is supposed to sit, and then just add some adhesive to the back of the middle of the O. And then pop that back. Slide that, and you can feel, there it is, when it engages, and then just press down that middle and remove, and then that, we know that is in the right place. So to get the eclipse look, we need to pop all of these out now. Just be careful, particularly with the N and the W, that you get all the bits. Right, so this is where the sticky strips are actually really good, because they're just a wee bit thicker. It does mean that you're going to have to pay large letter postage in the UK, because they are unlikely to go through unless you smile very sweetly at your postman in the post office. They are unlikely to go through as standard mail. Sorry. But let's start with an easy one. All you're going to do, oops, with fluff, is run adhesive down your pieces. Don't worry too much about getting right into the corners. Fluff everywhere. I'm going to just put strip at the top of these. If you put it all the way down, which is actually what I did on my first one, you don't get quite such a good eclipse, because you don't see the Tranquil Tide through, but that will give it enough support. Then I'm going to do the straight pieces first. The thicker bit of the letter is not such an issue. It's where you've got a thinner bit that you kind of sew here, for example. But the thicker bit will be fine. And then again, just at the top here, I'll just put a short piece. And then the S piece at each end. And then the middle. And you can bend this a little bit, so if you want to, you can bend it. Then, before I stick the last pieces onto the O, I'm going to grab, if I can find it still, oh there it is, my little piece of red ribbon, and I'm just going to tie a bow. I like to do my bows upside down for some reason. So I'm going to tie a bow around my O. And it might have been easier if I had a slightly longer piece of ribbon. Yep. It would have been easier if I had had a slightly longer piece of ribbon. But hey ho. Let's just adjust that. Just holding the knot reasonably in place. And there we go. And then just trim the ends so they're the same length. Ish. It is a bit ish. Right, then, sorry, this is a slightly long video. Add some sticky over that and another piece of sticky over that, and we can pop it all together. So actually, before I do that, I'm going to stick my card onto my card base, which I'm going to use Fast Fuse. It's just easier to do it before it's got the bits popped up on it. So, as I say, yes, do have a go at our challenge. All the information is over on the challenge group. If you go over to my blog post, there's a link to the challenge there. It's wonderful when we see people's versions. Yeah, there is no theme, it's just colour. So give it a go. Whatever is your favourite theme is perfect. We don't mind where you are, so if you're in the US, the UK, Canada, Australia, Japan, wherever you hail from, that would be wonderful. So yes, hopefully we will have lots of entries, because after all, in the lead up to Christmas, well, I think the next challenge is after Christmas. So you've got a wee while between Christmas and the next challenge to have a go. When things are a little quieter. What else can I tell you? Of course, we've got all sorts of exciting things coming up, because we've got the spring summer catalogue coming up. So if you're in the UK and you would like to shop with me and you'd like a catalogue, there is a form on my blog post of how to do that. Right, so the only other thing we need to do is add some more snow. Everything's better with a bit of Wink of Stella. Now, the only thing to be slightly careful of is to do the bits that don't have colour on first, because as Wink of Stella is wet, and as these are dye inks, the Wink of Stella will pick up colour. So if you want to keep the bits that haven't been stamped on clear, as in not coloured, do those first, and then you can just go over everything else. Just be a little careful that you don't muddy the colours too much, so more of a dab. And then if you think you're getting too much colour on, just clean off your brush and start again. So, as I say, dabbing is probably your friend here rather than sweeping, because you're less likely to blur the colour. And then just a piece of kitchen paper and wipe it off, and it's clear again. Just go in and add a little more on the areas that have mist. And that is it. So I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Do have a go at the challenge. If you need any products, please hop over to my online store, which is linked below. The associated blog post is linked below, and that's got all the products that I've used for this in it. So yeah, and other than that, oh, if you haven't already subscribed to my YouTube channel, please do so. There's a subscription button just in the bottom right hand corner. I will see you again very soon. Thanks a lot for watching.